Welcome to the Comic Sauce Podcast, where we talk comics and comics culture. I am Henry Liu, and today I am joined by Porfirio Rangel. Porfirio, how goes?
Hey Henry, it's going all good. I'm happy to be here talking some staying in the Halloween spirit.
Excellent. I'm also joined by Christian Diadamo. Christian, how are you doing?
Hey Henry, I'm doing well. Um, I'm also very afraid of some of the movies we're gonna talk about.
Yes, indeed. As both of you have alluded to, we're going to talk some horror today, horror movies. Today is November 3rd, 2022, and Halloween has just passed. So, horror movie season is pretty fresh in our brains, and we're going to get into it. The Comic Sauce Podcast can be found on Instagram and Twitter at Comic Sauce Pod. Okay, so where did this all come from? We had an episode way back when, Porfirio and I, where we did a little exchange with horror movies around this time of year, right?
Yeah.
We introduced to each other a beloved horror movie. So I believe it was me introducing The Shining to you and you introducing Insidious to me, right?
Was that it?
I think it was. Yeah,
Oh
I
wow.
think I think that was the thing. It was fun,
Yeah.
and we hadn't done it since then, and I thought it was a fun thing to do, and that it would be a pretty fun thing for the three of us to do. So
Yeah.
that's exactly what we did. We gave each other homework and watched some horror movies.
And
So we're gonna do that.
and props to Christian for watching a horror movie with us.
Yeah,
My
not your
Achilles heel.
yeah, not your favorite genre, right, Christian?
Oh, I hate jump scares.
All right. So since we have three movies to cover, let's not dilly dally too much. Why don't we just get right into the movies? So first off, the three movies we're gonna talk about from 1977, the Italian horror classic Suspiria, as well as 1993's Leprechaun and 1997's Event Horizon. So a fun little trio of pretty old horror movies. Nothing past the year 2000.
2000.
So a lot of classics here. So kind of fun, going back in time, so to speak.
Mhm.
Okay. So we'll do it in that order. We'll do it in chronological uh,
Release year.
release year. Yeah, by release year. Okay. So Suspiria. So this was my pick for you, Porfirio. First off, I was pretty glad that you were game for this one, because this is definitely one of my all-time favorite horror movies. And I know you love horror, so in the back of my mind, I was always thinking, man, when is Porfirio gonna fucking watch Suspiria, man? Come on. So when it came up that you still hadn't seen it, but were willing to watch it, I was excited. So here we are.
Mhm.
Let me talk a little bit about this movie. Um, this movie came out in 1977, but I hadn't seen it until, like recent years, like not that long ago. And the way I saw it was pretty cool, because I did see it in a movie theater at the Alamo Draft House in San Francisco, and I saw it in a brand new 4K restoration. So it looked really great. And for a movie that I had never seen before and a movie that I didn't know much about. This was like the perfect way to watch this flick. Yeah, again, didn't know much about it, and had never seen it before, and saw it in this like beautiful restoration, awesome uh sound quality, awesome presentation,
Hmm.
and it was just it blew me away. It so you know
You had the whole experience, the whole package.
yeah, it was a very memorable experience watching
Uh-huh.
this movie in
Hmm.
the theaters in that way. So a little bit more on that. um you know what, I did watch this again, so you got the homework, and I had seen this movie multiple times before. But I did want to watch it again. It was kind of fun. It gave me an excuse to watch this movie I love so much.
Uh-huh.
It gave me the opportunity to see it again. And yeah, like seeing it again, I think I have a pretty good handle on why it resonates so much with me. And it kind of reminded me a bit of stuff we've talked about before. I kind of went on and on about Spider-Man No Way Home, about how like this is why we go to the movies. And
Hmm.
it was really like movies that when you watch it, you feel this like this visceral experience. You feel like you're feeling something. You're really feeling something, right? So with Spider-Man, like I cried when Aunt May died, and I cheered when Spider-Man is like fighting the bad guys, and there's all this like nostalgia from the old Spider-Mans showing up, and I was just feeling shit. I felt alive. And like when there's a great movie, I feel like that's what it does, right?
Uh-huh.
You just feel something. And it's funny that I'm comparing this old Italian horror movie to like a new superhero movie, but in a way, like that's what I'm getting at. It
Hmm.
with Suspiria also, like when I watch this movie, I really feel something, and it really just hits you with this visceral experience, like I've been saying. So, like with the music, the sound effects, and the amazing visuals, it really is an experience. Like, and the violence is just like really, it's brutal, and there's this great surreal and psychedelic quality to the movie. And yeah, I'm just kind of rambling, but yeah, it's just this great like cinematic masterpiece, I think. And every time I see it, like I just feel like, whoa, like I've really experienced something. I felt something, like when you're like binging Netflix, or when you're streaming a show. Like sometimes there's so much content out there now, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes there's this like kind of numbing effect. And like at the end of a weekend, I'll be like, oh man, I don't even remember what I watched. I just watched all this crap. And like it was just there, it was just on. And I wasn't really feeling anything, right? But there are rare instances, right, where there's a movie, sometimes a show as well, but yeah, with movies, for me, it's especially like this with great movies,
Hmm.
where I just feel it, and if you're really feeling it, then like I said, that's why we watch movies, to feel this stuff, right?
Hmm.
And yeah, so we'll talk more, obviously. But that was kind of like my intro to the movie, and my heartfelt summation of this particular movie.
Hmm.
So let's kick it over to you, Porfirio. Tell us about your experience watching
Okay.
Suspiria.
Well, I mean, should I explain what the movie's about, or do you want to explain what the movie?
Oh yeah, I haven't even talked about what this movie's about. You know what? I'll give the one line description on IMDb, and you can like
Okay.
kind of
Okay.
expand from there. Yeah. So on
Uh-huh.
IMDb, Suspiria is described as a horror movie, rated R, from 1977,
Hmm.
1 hour 32 minutes. An American newcomer to a prestigious German ballet academy comes to realize that the school is a front for something sinister amid a series of grisly murders. So that is the synopsis. And yeah, maybe you can expand on that, Porfirio. Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like I was thinking of like how can I describe this movie, and then yeah, thank God you read that because that perfectly sums up the movie. Um,
Plot wise,
plot wise,
but
yeah, plot
there's a whole lot
plot.
more than that going on.
Yeah,
Go.
plot wise. So without
Yeah.
giving without spoilers first, um, yeah, like I came into the movie like yeah, reading just that description. I know, yeah, you've been talking about this movie for so long. You've been recommending to me for so long. And yeah, so you finally assigned this movie to me to watch for homework, and I watched it on Tubi TV. I think that's what the streaming service is called.
Mhm.
But yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I was just kind of like, okay, like I'm just gonna go in with this like I because I felt like that description was just very vague. I was like, I don't know what the hell's gonna happen, but let me just go into this like very open-minded. Henry has for good sense, like me and Henry's tastes are like pretty similar. We have our disagreements when we come to reviews and stuff. But I was like, for our tastes, I feel like we have like similar tastes. So I was like, okay, Henry gave me one of his favorite horror movies. So let me come with an open mind, see how this turns out. So yeah, the movie was made in the 70s, and right off the bat, you could tell like the music, the visuals, the graphics. It was definitely like I felt like low budget and just very cheesy, but that's something I like from like or old horror movies. I like that one, the visuals, and two, the music. I feel like that kind of drives um like retro horror movies, not like today where it's like they rely on like special effects and jump scares, to get like a good pop. I felt like horror movies back in the day were just more like about like the plot line and the music and the acting, and so this one definitely like had that kind of vibe, and I was appreciating it and everything. But then the more I kept watching it, then it started falling to like a cheesy realm, like the acting was just so like, what's the word I'm looking for? Cheesy,
Mhm.
dramatic, where
Mhm.
it was like, oh, like so and so didn't show up into her room tonight, and then like the reaction would be like, oh my god, I hope she's okay. It's just super like ex- uh exaggerated,
Mhm.
and then also, yeah, the effects, you could just like the fake blood was, you could just tell it was fake blood. The editing was like not the best. Like it was just super cheesy, and I was kind of like, oh, this is so like annoying, but I was there for it and stuff. um so like I was in it and stuff. I was following along with it, and yeah, so during the storyline, people are disappearing, and I was kind of like, I didn't know what was going on. I was like, because like I think there's like an opening scene where like one of the people who one of the dancers who runs away from the dance academy, she gets murdered by like this like weird figure, And so like like throughout the movie people are disappearing, but there's like a shadowy figure, and so you don't know if like this is like a murder kind of person villain or is this like a supernatural kind of thing. And so I was kind of like invested in that storyline, like what's happening, like who's the villain. And I was yeah, kind of just like, yeah, just like being like, let's find out, like let's play the movie, let's figure this out together, and now I'm gonna go into spoilers. um Unless, Christian, do you want me to go into spoilers or?
You can go into spoilers.
Okay.
I'm very intrigued to watch this movie, but I'm very slow on my horror, so I might forget.
Yeah, let's
Well,
give this spoiler alert for all three movies:
okay, so
Suspiria, Leprechaun, and Event
spoiler alert.
Horizon. Yeah,
And
go ahead.
I know, like, Christian says you're not like a big horror movie because of the jump scares. I will tell you, there isn't any jump scares in this movie. So,
Okay, thank you.
um, so yeah, so towards the end of the movie, the main actress, I don't remember. I think she was trying to leave the academy, but she uncovers like a bunch of secrets and stuff, and it leads her down to like this like weird like hallway passage, and she goes to the end of the hall, and then it's actually like a um what it turns out to be is that like this dance academy is actually like a witch's coven. So there's like this like queen witch and um like group of like servants like who are staff at the dance academy who are loyal to this queen witch, and they're just like, we need like these like sacrifices to like for all this stuff. And I did not see that twist coming, Henry. I was just like, whoa, like yeah, I thought it was like a murder, like Jason, or even like a ghost or something. I did not expect the witch twist. So I was like, so when that was happening, I was kind of like, okay, like I just felt like there was nothing during the movie that gave off that this was like witches, like this was like a witch coven. And then I guess like looking back, I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense. That makes sense. And um but yeah, like the music was really good. I really love the visuals that they were doing with it. I think, like I said, I'm just a sucker for like old horror movies where they rely on like the cinematography versus like jump scares and special CGI effects and stuff like that. I just really kind of appreciate like that they were like using these like elements that are not so much used nowadays to like scare and like what you said, Henry, like give like immerse the audience into the movie and let them appreciate it for what it is.
Right, right on. Okay, cool. Wow. Okay, you said a lot there. Um, so just going back to a couple things, like I would say, yeah, like you mentioned how the acting was like really corny. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I could see that. Now, first off, the movie is very bizarre and surreal. So, like the acting performances weren't they weren't that off-putting to me just because the whole movie was just kind of strange, right? But add to that the fact that Italian movies at this time were all dubbed. So
Hmm.
the dubbing probably made the acting seem even worse than it was, which in the first place it probably wasn't great.
Yeah,
I would admit to.
yeah, that was one thing I was wondering. I was like, is this it? So it was dubbed, right? Like
Oh
the
yeah,
ink,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I knew, like you told me it was an Italian horror movie, and so like like when I was watching it, yeah, like that was one thing I noticed. That I was like, oh, they're speaking like perfect English.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
see no accent. And then I was I couldn't tell, but yeah, I just couldn't tell if like the words like the English words aligned with like their mouthing of how they're pronouncing words. And I was just so good thing you said that because that clarified a lot for me.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I, I, I wouldn't put too much emphasis on the performances just because it's such a strange movie.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that is a good disclaimer that this movie, along with most Italian movies of this era, were dubbed.
Mhm.
So something to keep in mind.
Mhm.
And I do agree with you. The effects are very dated, to say it kindly. So yeah, it is. It's interesting because the movie is so like beautiful to look at. The visuals are gorgeous. The colors are really amazing.
Uh-huh.
Um, so it's shot really beautifully. The
Mhm.
production design is great. The sets are great. Um, but whenever there's a call for any kind of effect, it's like, wow, okay, we're definitely in the 70s here. um for the most part, I was okay with it, except for one thing. There was one scene where like there's a bat flies into the
Oh
main
yeah.
character's room. Oh my
Uh-huh.
god, the bat looked fake as fuck. Oh my god, it looked like um
The rubber bat.
yeah,
And
like you could almost see like the rubber band is
yeah.
hanging on,
Yeah.
um and yeah, we've come a long way in visual effects. But yeah, yeah, that when I was rewatching it, I specifically saw that scene. I was like, wow, that almost like took me out of this great experience I've been talking about, right? It almost took
Uh-huh.
me out of that. But that alone didn't ruin it entirely for me. Um, but yeah, it is interesting to hear your words and see the movie through your eyes, because yeah, clearly you had a little bit of a different experience. Um, let's see. Yeah. Okay. So, oh yeah, it's funny we were talking about like, oh, is this something that Christian could watch? And I think so. It's fun. It's a horror movie, but it's not that scary, really. It's
It's
definitely more bizarre and disturbing more than like straight up
yeah.
scares, right?
Yeah, I would say it's more like a kind of like a thriller kind of
Hmm. Hmm.
like a very good like cinematographic um thriller film. I wouldn't say it's like um like scared where you can't sleep with the lights off.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's more like, oh, what's I'm intrigued. I'm
Hmm.
intrigued. What's gonna happen next? It's more that kind of feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, before we're like fully immersed into this whole witchcraft thing, it's almost more of a like a crime mystery, right?
Mhm.
Where we're
Mhm.
not sure what's going on, and we're just sort of like going through this investigation on these murders, right?
Yeah.
But then, yeah, once the whole witchcraft doors are open, then yeah, it really does become a horror movie. Oh, another thing you mentioned about how the blood looks really fake. So this is an interesting thing to me because I agree, the blood in this movie does look fake. It doesn't look like real blood. But it that didn't really take away from the experience I had, because it went right along with the psychedelia of the movie. The
Mm.
blood in this movie is bright red.
It's like
It does not
paint,
look real. It
like
looks like
paint
paint.
red.
Yeah, it looks like
Yeah.
bright red paint.
Mhm.
um it's so bright that it's like it was clearly like a style choice. And it looks like otherworldly, and it just like sort of adds to the surreal factor to this movie,
Mhm.
and I think adds to like the visuals. It's striking. So pretty interesting flick, this one. No question. um yeah, so I think we can get to rating. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
So
Christian, do you have any questions
oh,
about the
that's good. Yeah,
movie?
yeah, any questions?
Hmm. let's see. Like, not any questions, and I like that you kind of gave the no jump scare like disclaimer. I almost feel like that's something that it's like, oh, I wish that was on every horror movie. On the back of the DVD, this movie has 5 jump scares for weenies like myself. Um, because yeah, I am very like interested. I I I think like the words that really caught my eye or my ear here was psychedelic.
Mm,
hmm
I and I think that it makes the whole thing look very intriguing,
hmm
Like how psychedelic is this movie? Like how
Very
mhm
like yeah, like I think because yeah, like a big thing that was I feel like they wanted to give focus on was not so much the storyline, but like the visuals. I mean, Henry, obviously you could correct me if I'm wrong, but like, they really you could just tell they really want to like focus on like the visuals, the music, and yeah, you could just tell that it was meant to kind of be like, yeah, a psychedelic film. Like it would just be like visuals, like lighting, like filters that would not probably be used in today's horror films. Like they would be like in a um room where like maybe like the window would have like red tinting, and then that just like made the entire room like red.
mhm, yeah.
And so like it just like played on like a lot of like color schemes throughout the film that I just don't think you would see in today's like um any horror film nowadays.
hmm
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
and you brought up the music too. The music is a huge part of the appeal of this movie, I would say. Like there is this weird progressive rock soundtrack playing all throughout the movie, and it's so prominent that it's almost like a 90-minute music video almost. It's
hmm
like the music is that prominent, and it's out there. It's very strange, and it definitely adds a lot to the experience. And oh, another note I wanted to add, um yeah, basically no jump scares in this movie, but it's definitely a horror movie. It's pretty brutally violent. It's disturbing and weird.
hmm
It's creepy. It definitely has a lot of horror elements. So I'm not saying like, oh yeah, this is something you can watch with the family on Christmas Day. That's not saying that. Um, but yeah, there's some pretty weird, messed up stuff in this movie. There's a scene where maggots are like falling
oh yeah.
from the ceiling, and it's like real fucking maggots and a lot of them. And it's gross. It's really gross. um and then I made note of this too. um to me, there's something about a creepy kid, like a creepy child wearing like old-timey clothes. That there's something to that, man. That creeps me out. And there is that in this movie too. There's this one kid in the movie, you see him all throughout wearing these old-timey clothes. Very creepy. So yeah, a lot of horror elements in this one. So even though there's no straight up jump scares, there's a lot of disturbing imagery.
hmm
No question.
Hey, I'm good with that.
Right on.
I don't mind gore. I don't mind creepy imagery, but no jump scares, no
It's like,
screamers.
uh-huh.
then
Any
Christian, I
more
would say this movie is for you.
any more questions, and Christian?
No, I think you guys probably covered all the bases there. I think I'm
Okay.
definitely intrigued.
Okay, let's get to the ratings for Suspiria. So since
Do-
I was the recommender, I
uh-huh.
can start, and
Yeah.
then we can kick it over to you, Porfirio. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, so as I've been saying, this is definitely one of my all-time favorites. in the horror genre. And I think just kind of generally one of my all-time favorites just for movies. And I'm gonna have to go with the 5 out of 5 for Suspiria. And yeah, like I was thinking, do I need to qualify that? Like, oh, maybe you have to be like a certain type of person to appreciate this. Um, but I'm gonna say pretty objectively that I recommend this to pretty much anyone because, like I've been saying, this is one of those movies that is made to be experienced. It gives you that feeling,
Mhm.
that you've experienced something. And really, I mean, that's, to me, I've been kind of saying it over and over now, but that's why we watch movies, is to feel and to get that visceral reaction. So yeah, 5 out of 5. How about you, Porfirio?
So yeah, Henry, you obviously like it a lot more than me. I'm gonna give this a 2 out of 5. I
2. Wow.
I thought it was really good on a visual, like cinematography aspect. Um, but just the acting and the storyline, I was just it just got me nowhere. I was just like I thought the acting I was just a little it was very over the top and the storyline. Um I was intrigued. I'll give it that because it does have like that detective mystery vibe. But then when it just kind of dragged on, and then when that twist was reveal, I was just kind of like, "That's it." Like, I'm sorry. Um, would I recommend it? I feel like I would recommend it because I feel like if you love horror, like you would have an appreciation for like where the horror genre was at one point. Um, but would I watch it with you, Christian? I'd probably be like, no, Christian, you watch it in your own time. I don't want to watch this right now.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch it again. Maybe in a while, but not anytime soon.
Fair enough. Well, you can't win them all. I think one thing that you're highlighting is that this is a pretty old movie. This is from 45 years ago.
hmm
So it's seems some time passed.
Yeah, I after I watched the movie, like I said, I didn't have the most like warm reaction to it, and I looked up like why it's so beloved and everything. I was like, was there something I missed? And yeah, there was like, Henry, you pointed it out a lot, was just like there was just like this like really like deep like cinematography, psychedelic, um immersive experience that was just like beloved at the time and even nowadays, and that I guess like a lot of like cinema classes showed this movie because of all those elements. And I'm like, okay, I can understand it on that part. I'll give it like cinematography, I'll give it a 5 out of 5. But me personally, like story wise, horror, like I would not I was just not satisfied, entertained, and I wouldn't probably watch it again anytime soon.
Uh,
Um, but
Understandable.
yeah.
And thank you for being honest. And I think that's maybe a good positive note to wrap up Suspiria on, and that is that okay, it's an old movie, and I understand.
Mhm.
With older movies, sometimes it's hard to get into them. Uh, but this movie is undoubtedly influential.
Mhm.
So I think uh, that's something to be recognized,
Yeah, for sure.
because a
Mhm.
lot of movies have drawn inspiration from this movie.
Mhm.
And in particular, horror movies have drawn inspiration from this movie. So this genre that you yourself love so much has drawn a lot of inspiration from Suspiria. So yeah, that's that's noteworthy, right? The fact
Yeah, for
that
sure.
a lot of people uh, have appreciated this one, and it's kind of one of those earlier movies that has led to so much more, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like, I totally am on board with everything you're saying.
Cool. Okay, on to our second movie,
Yay.
Leprechaun. So Leprechaun was Porfirio's recommendation to Christian. So
Yes.
Porfirio, why don't you start here and tell us a little bit about your experiences with this movie?
Okay. So Leprechaun, you said it was 94? That's when the movie was released?
93.
Oh, 93. Okay. So I first watched Leprechaun in 2002. I was in second grade. Um, this movie is, I mean, basically about a fucking little leprechaun who kills anyone who's trying to take his gold. It stars and Jennifer Aniston from Friends, and this is before she was on the show. So this was like I think her first like film ever. I think. Um, but yeah, so I watched it when I was in second grade. I was 8, probably. No, sorry, I can't do the math. I was born 94, so 8 at the time. And I was fucking scared shitless. I got home from Halloween and I was just randomly putting stuff on, and Leprechaun just so happened to be on TV, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." And it was that scene, Christian, where like Leprechaun gets pulled aside by the police officer. And so that was the scene that I turned to. And so when the Leprechaun just like, kind of like crushes his face, I was just like, "Oh my gosh, what the hell? What the hell?" And I was really scared.
Hey,
And
let's pause there real quick. Let me give the quick intro on this
okay.
movie. We did say 1993,
Uh-huh.
rated R. That's notable because you were fucking 8 years old when you watched this movie. It's 1 hour 32 minutes, and a real quick one line description from IMDb.
Okay.
An evil, sadistic leprechaun goes on a killing rampage in search of his beloved pot of gold.
Basically.
There we
Yeah, that's
go.
it. There we go.
So, and okay, I just have to ask this before we move on.
Okay.
How the hell did you stick with this movie as an 8-year-old? Like, because I have a son who's literally 8 years old right now, and if he
Uh,
watched like a second of this movie, he would be out the room. Like, he just run away.
I
Like, how did you stay with it?
I think just because like I was a weird kid, I liked horror stuff. I would watch, the Goosebumps TV show. I don't know if you guys remember that on
Oh
Fox
yeah.
Kids, and like the X Files, and
Wow.
oh my gosh, what was the other Aliens? I had like watched all those, so I was like, I loved horror movies even as a kid, but for some reason, Leprechaun, like I don't know if it was like the makeup or whatever, but it like yeah, fucking scared me. And before giving the mic over to Christian, I just want to say like yeah, like I was fucking terrified of that little fucker like when I was a kid. And so like I said, I was in second grade and I was more scared of St. Patrick's Day than I was like of Halloween. Like I was scared of fucking leprechauns until I think I was like in middle school. So
Wow.
yeah, I was in second grade, so that's like 6 years I was like of my life that I was scarred by freaking leprechauns. Um, but that's my experience, and then I recommended it to Christian because, like, like I said, Christian, he's not a jump scare person, and I was like, well, I was scared of this as a kid. Let's see if Christian is gonna feel the same way. If it scares him or he's just gonna laugh at it, like Yeah, so that was my recommendation to Christian. So yeah, Christian, you want to share your thoughts and experience with
Yeah.
it?
So like yeah, I never watched this movie as a kid. Although like weirdly I kind of knew about the series cuz there's like all these sequels to it, you know.
Uh-huh.
Um going like even pretty recently. There's one in 2018. And so like but I had never seen any of these movies before, and like this first one from 1993, I thought it was really hilarious. I had a lot of fun watching this movie. It's definitely like it felt like a horror comedy with the camp level at an all-time high from what I've seen. Like it like a lot of the kills were like kind of had me giggling and like kind of laughing while I was watching it. And as well as some of the lines. Like it felt like much more of a comedy with horror elements than like a horror. You know, I didn't really feel scared at all when I was watching it. I kind of enjoyed watching Warwick Davis as the Leprechaun because a lot of the movie is him just kind of messing with the cast and running away. They'll be doing something. He'll like do some sort of magical thing, or just some sort of like something like quickly gory, where he like scratches them or something like that and runs off. And there's like a lot of little bits of like kind of like funny little lines here and there. A lot of like really good one-liners. So I did really have a good time. Like I think if I was this movie reminded me of a Halloween party movie that you would watch in like college. You know, it's R-rated, so it's not really something you put on a kid's Halloween party. But you're at a costume party, you're all drinking, and I say college, you're all adults, and I would go to a bunch of those when I was in college, and there would kind of be bad Halloween movies and on in the background. You know, stuff like Ginger Dead Man or like Houseu, you know, stuff like that. And it really feels at home in that atmosphere.
Mhm.
You're watch like you kind of watch it with a beer in your hand and you make fun of it with your friends, you know. So I had a good time with this. Like it's pretty zany. Warwick Davis as the Leprechaun is great. You could tell he's having so much fun in this role, and like there really is a lot of great lines. He talks in rhymes, funny little lines, and like has like a lot of fun and kills. There's one where he kills someone by jumping on him with a pogo stick, as he jumps on their lungs while rhyming the whole time. And then I really did enjoy that. Like, I guess not to poke fun at the part that scared you as a kid, but when he because after he kills that guy, he steals like apparently that guy has like a tiny leprechaun sized car in his basement, which Leprechaun steals and steals like a tricycle to just rides down the highway, and it's like midnight, and a cop catches him, and he's like, "Aren't you a little young to be out on the road?" "Oh, I'm 600 years old." And really, well, you can't be out on the road, you know. And then he goes and kills the cop. And there's lots of little like moments like that where it's just like it's really really goofy and really really campy and you can't help but laugh. So that was my general experience watching it. I had the opposite reaction.
Well, glad you enjoyed it. I
Oh yeah.
yeah, I didn't at the time, but yeah, like it. Looking back now, I'm just like, oh yeah, it's pretty funny, and all the other sequels are just like ridiculous. I think like number three is like he goes to Vegas, and number four is like he goes to space and and is trying to marry like an alien queen or something like that.
And
um,
goes to the hood
yeah, he goes
with
to the
I
hood,
think like
and
iced tea is in that one.
Yeah. And so, yeah. So I'm glad you got a good laugh out of it and you didn't get scared.
I, I think my favorite line in this movie, like, is right about for the leprechaun's about to die. So the kid has like, I think he's got the gold coin, the last gold coin, and or no, he's got like a fire thing, like a firecracker. That he's about to shoot into the leprechaun's mouth, and he just goes, "Fuck you, Lucky Charms," and he shoots the firecracker into the leprechaun's mouth, and he just and that's how the leprechaun dies. And when I was looking into this movie, I found this online, so take this with a grain of salt. Like this is just but apparently there's a scene earlier where the leprechaun is eating off-brand Lucky Charms, like gets the cereal box and is just munching on them. And apparently that was originally supposed to be Lucky Charms, and like I think it was Kellogg's like approved it. But then they saw the movie and they're like, no, you can't do this. Like, we don't want to be in this movie.
Oh.
And so they had to quickly reshoot the scene, like do these reshoots to accommodate. And the filmmakers were so pissed, they pull this kid aside and they're like, "Hey, we're changing the line. You're gonna say 'fuck you, Lucky Charms,' so we could let them know how much."
That's awesome.
That's what I've read online about that line because it's it's such a great line.
Yeah, that was a movie. Yeah, Henry, do you have any questions or anything you want to add?
I do have some questions.
Okay.
So I have not seen Leprechaun. Um, don't know if I'm too psyched about checking this one out, but I do have questions. I do have questions.
Okay.
Let's see. So it is the most interesting thing is that you watch this movie when you're 8 years old. Like that is just the most fascinating thing. And understandably, you were scared shitless at the time.
Hmm.
It sounds like to me that as grown adults, it's movies not really that scary. But I don't know, when you watch this movie now, do you still have like old PTSD reactions? Do you get scared at all, or is it all like just that was just when I was a kid? I'm not scared at all now.
No, yeah, definitely when I watch it nowadays, I do have a good laugh. Like probably how Christian got a laugh out of it. I do laugh about it, but I do have those like memories of like when I was scared of it and stuff, like 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 you mentioned like the scene where he gets like the the pogo stick and he's jumping on the guy and kills him. I just remember being like, "Oh my gosh," like just being like scared and like hiding behind the couch and everything and um yeah, I only watched it for a little bit because I just remember like kind of like screaming every time he like kills somebody, and I was just like, "Turn it off!" And then I remember there were times where I was just like, "Let me be brave. I could get through this. I could get through this." And every time I tried watching it and he'd like kill somebody, I'm like, "Nope, nope, nope, can't do this, can't do this." So like now when I watch it, I do remember like those moments when I was scared, but I mean, I could watch it and just probably like enjoy it and laugh about it like how Christian did.
Oh, actually, there is actually one scene that really caught me. But it's not really what you think it is. Um, so like, cause it reminded me of something that I was scared of when I was a kid. So I used to have really, really bad arachnophobia, uh, and when I was like growing up, and so like beginning of the movie when they get to the house, Jennifer Aniston and her dad, and they go to the basement, and there's like a big fucking tarantula in the basement, and it like like the shot stays on it for like a while as it's like crawling up something, and Jennifer Aniston points it out, like, and it goes back to the fucking tarantula. She's like, "Oh my god, look at that spider! It's so big, it's gonna kill us." And I'm like, gotta burn the house down now. Fuck that. And it made me go, oh god. Oh man, I'm gonna look away for a second.
Nice. Oh, and I had a question, and maybe more for you, Christian, but uh, so it's kind of interesting to me that Warwick Davis is the star of this movie. He plays the Leprechaun because I know him as playing all these like beloved characters, right? He played Willow in the Willow movie, the heroic Willow, and the cute and cuddly Ewok Wicket in Return of the Jedi. And like, he was in the Harry Potter movies a lot too, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I really just can't see him as a murderous leprechaun. Like, well, was that weird to you seeing him like do all this crazy shit?
Actually not really, cause like for some reason his design reminded me of one of his characters, which was the goblins from Harry Potter, in a way,
Yeah.
who like run the bank. And so like I don't know, and I think it's also like it's so silly, and he's having so much fun that you're kind of having fun watching him, you know? Like like it didn't feel like jarring or anything, or like and he's also in like a lot of makeup the whole
Mm,
time.
mhm. Got it. Got it.
I think, kind of going off with like branching off what you said, Henry. Because I think Christian mentioned earlier how there's like a 2018 Leprechaun movie now, and because they rebooted it, I think like twice, and both times they asked what's his name, Warwick.
Warwick Davis.
Warwick Davis, if he wanted to reprise his role as Leprechaun, but because he's a dad also, he said like he doesn't want to because he doesn't want to um play roles anymore that would like scare his kids.
Mm, interesting.
Yeah. Huh.
Okay, so I think we can go on to our ratings. Yeah. So, Porfirio, you were the recommender here. How would you rate Leprechaun?
I would rate it a 4, not so much on like the horror aspect, but just like the entertainment value. I feel like, kind of like what, like Christian had said, like, I feel like it's probably not a movie you want to watch like if you're bored and have nothing else to watch, but you should like watch it with like a group of people and just like laugh and make fun of it and just like have a good time. And it's not scary unless you're in second grade and 8 years old. So I don't recommend it for Simon. But I feel like, yeah, if you're like at a college party or even in high school and you just want like a good movie to laugh off while enjoying like your Halloween night, I feel like maybe that's like the perfect time to do it. So I would say 4 out of 5.
All right. The perfect Halloween party movie. Yeah. All
Mhm.
right. How about you, Christian?
Yeah, this is a Halloween party movie. High entertainment value, low on scares, you know. I like I did have an idea of what I wanted to rate this, and like but like also I'm like kind of debating it a bit, because like I will say like this fits under the category of like bad horror. Like you know what I mean when I say bad horror, even if it's not a bad uh like just a strictly bad movie out its own terms. You think of like, oh well, it's one of those so campy, it's so goofy, it's so
Stupid.
corny, stupid, that like you really enjoy it. Like others, I think I mentioned the Ginger Dead Man. Uh, Thanksgiving is another one that I've seen that's really out there, really corny and fun to watch, and it feels very home in that camp. You know, like even if I didn't find it like really scary, and it has kind of all the like the trappings of that, where it's like you have the really corny effects, the really fun over the top kills, the bad acting. Except for Warwick Davis, he was great. Um, and like it has all of that. It's a movie that like part of you wants to say like, oh, this is kind of like a 1 out of 5 because it has all of that. And I think if I went into it with a different mindset, I might have said like, ah, yeah, just it's terrible in a way, you know. Like, but I think it really leans into it leans into that one to the point where I actually found the entertainment value to be very high, um, of it, and like I would definitely like put this on at a Halloween party. Um, and so that's kind of where like, oh, you know, where I think the rating is. Um, and so like I feel like in a way it's like bad on every level, but it's so good at being funny. You know, that like it almost feels like it's a 1, but it feels disingenuous to give it a 1. So I'll put it up to like a, you know, I'd say a 2. I think that's kind of where it
Yeah.
lives.
There we go. It almost
Yeah.
sounds like you're saying the critics review it as a 1, but the fans review it as a 3. So let's
Yeah.
give it a 2 kind of
This
thing.
movie, like I looked at the IMDb, it's 27% on
Okay.
on the tomato meter. Like, and if you look at the reviews, they all say the same thing. This movie wasn't scary,
Mm.
but I think if you view it as a comedy, it's gold.
I see what you did there.
Mhm.
Excellent. And you know, it's funny, we're kind of building a theme here because, you know, this is a horror themed episode, but 2 out of the 3 movies we've covered so far were, I mean, they are beloved movies with some of us, but no one is saying that these movies are scary, really, you know. So you know, horror movies, you know, are very diverse. There's a lot to get out of horror movies, and it's not just the scares, right?
Mhm.
Yes, some horror movies are really scary, and that's why we go see them, but that's not the only reason we watch horror movies, right? There's a lot more to it than just that.
Mhm.
Okay, let's move on to our third and final movie, Event Horizon from 1997. Let me do the quick little intro here. Yeah, 1997, Event Horizon, rated R. Another pretty short movie, 1 hour, 36 minutes. Uh, this one was directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. And the quick description on IMDb goes as a rescue crew investigates a spaceship that disappeared into a black hole and has now returned, dot, 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 with someone or something new on board. Event Horizon. Okay, so this was recommended by Christian to me. So Christian, maybe you can tell us a little bit about why you recommended it to me and maybe some of your experiences watching this one.
Yeah. So this is so like Porfirio, I kind of just caught this movie as a kid. It was on TV or it was just on someone else was watching it. And to be honest, I only really caught like a minute of it before I turned it off and left or just walked out of the room. I kind of don't remember, but I remember picking out Sam Neill because I really like Jurassic Park and he's Grant. And I'm like, "Oh, hey, it's Dr. Grant." And then it's like, "Oh, this is it. I'm out of here. This is too much." And so that was my experience with Event Horizon, and it's kind of like it was a very quick moment, but it's something that just kind of stuck with me, and like something I always kind of had in the back of my mind as I kept growing up and heard more about it. That I was like, oh, I'm gonna go back to. And to be honest, I didn't actually come back to this until we were talking about a movie to recommend. But also because this movie was recommended to us by Dr. Jane Foster in the last Thor movie. um, at the very beginning of the movie, she's talking
Oh,
to she's in, you know, she has cancer and she's at the doctor's office and someone's reading her book, and she's talking about the Einstein Rosen bridge, and she rips out the paper and pushes the pencil through it as a way to describe it, and she even says, "Well, go see Event Horizon."
Ah,
So
yes.
it was another kind of little thing in the back of my mind, you know. I was like, okay, all right, I'll check out this movie then. Um, and it's definitely garnered a cult following, I think, over the ages. I love sci-fi, and like all sci-fi movies, this bombed at the box office critically and financially. It's got a
Mm.
31% on Rotten Tomatoes and completely flopped in the theaters. But it kind of garnered a cult following over time once it released to VHS and DVD. And so coming back to this movie scared the shit out of me. But I ended up really, really liking it. Um, I love the space. It's definitely a haunted house movie in space. Reminds me a lot of The Shining, and but with a lot of jump scares. This movie is super jump scare heavy, which is probably why it scared me a lot. Like it just keeps coming throughout the entire movie. But I think like its sense of atmosphere, and its mystery kind of behind the ship is just so intriguing. I just couldn't look away, and I just had to keep watching, you know. And that was my experience with it. So
Cool.
what did you think, Henry?
Well, first off, are you saying that you hadn't seen this movie until just recently? Is that
No,
correct?
yeah. It's
Okay.
something that's always been in the back of my mind to watch. But I think
Okay.
I think I just mentioned it because we were looking at like movies to watch,
Oh,
and it
nice.
was one that
Okay.
you actually hadn't seen. So I was like,
Okay.
oh, let's do that one.
Oh, cool.
I was
So
too
yeah.
scared
Yeah, so okay, this
until
is
now.
this is a kind of a different approach because with me and Porfirio, we were basically um, you know, choosing movies that meant a lot to us in our lives basically over the courses of our lives. And we wanted to like spread the love around, but this was just a case where this is a movie you kind of been meaning to watch anyway, so like, oh hey, here's an opportunity to watch it and we can all talk about it. Yeah,
Yeah, pretty much. Like it's something I've always wanted to see. So this is kind of like I guess the push that I needed to finally take the plunge.
cool. Well, I'm glad you did because I kind of feel the same. Like this movie is something I've heard about, and kind of along the same lines as you've been saying, I've heard about it as a cult classic kind of movie, and yeah, no one's really been like in my face saying you have to see this movie, nothing like that. But it's just kind of in the periphery. I hear, mention of it here and there, and when I saw the cast, I'm like, oh, this is cool. Lawrence Fishburne and Sam Neill. This is a really cool cast. Um, and also the director, Paul W.S. Anderson. I'm a fan of his work. So yeah, I'm glad you gave that little push because I was like, oh, okay, I'm down to watch this. And yes, I did enjoy it quite a bit. Let's see. So my thoughts as I was watching this movie. Oh, first off, that's cool. You mentioned the connection to Thor, Love and Thunder, because when the scene comes up in Event Horizon where they talk about like bridging the gap and using almost the same little trick that Natalie Portman uses in Thor, I was like, this seems really familiar. What is that? But now you mentioned that it's from Thor: Love and Thunder. I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. Very cool. But yeah, as I was watching this movie, yeah, pretty early on, I was like, how did I never see this movie before? Because it seems like a movie that I would have watched. 1997, definitely a period of time that I was watching a lot of movies. I can mention the cast, actors that, I enjoy. Um, Cult classic, I definitely dig my cult classics. And I was just like, how did I not see this? It's the movie Paul W.S. Anderson did right after the Mortal Kombat movie, and not long before he did the Resident Evil movie. Two movies that I saw pretty much right after they released on home video and really enjoyed. So I was like, again, how did I not see this movie? So that was in my head. And as I was watching, I was like, I'm glad I'm getting to see the movie now. Like I've been saying, I enjoyed it. And here's what really struck me about the movie. So it's, it could be considered a little schlocky, not as like lowest common denominator as, say, Leprechaun. But no one's gonna mistake it with like high art, kind of like what we've been saying with Suspiria. It's like, oh, so influential, like it's the movie that film directors go to for inspiration. No one's accusing Event Horizon for being that kind of movie. It's cheap scares and a lot of blood and gore, and yeah, it's a little bit on the schlocky side, right? But it has a really top-notch cast, and the cast really leans into their performances. The performances are so good in this movie. And you would think, like, reading the script, an actor like Lawrence Fishburne or Sam Neill might be like, what did I get myself into? Like, this is like a cheesy, bloody horror movie. And maybe they would just mail in their performance. But no, man, they just like went all in on this shit, because I don't think we talked about like the main premise of the movie too much, but I think it can be best summarized as a haunted spaceship movie, right? That's probably the best way to describe this one. And when we say haunted, man, it's a spaceship that has traveled to who knows where and has brought something sinister back. And what it has brought back is this ability to bestow people's greatest fears, right? So throughout the movie, the actors or the characters in the movie are confronted with their greatest fears. And it's not just Fishburne and Neil, right? There's this whole ensemble cast, and they're all great, man. Every time one of these actors has their moment of like feeling their greatest fear, you really feel it. They really sell it. And the movie does a pretty cool thing where you see the actor's performance. They're terrified, right? But you don't really see what they're seeing, right? You kind of see it, but you never really full on see it. And I think that's what really makes the movie work, right? You see the terrified look, and then you see like these quick cut visions of hell moments, right? And it's very disturbing. And the fact that you don't get to fully see what they see, your mind kind of like, I don't know, fills in the blanks, right? And what you don't see is like really terrifying, because you see the look in their face, right? And I'm telling you that the performances are so good that they're just like genuinely terrified, and you really feel it. And that just makes it that scarier, right? These little quick cuts are really disturbing. And I'm not even sure what you see. They're so fast. You just see like, I don't know, bloody faces and just corpses and just, I don't know what. It's just super disturbing. But to me, that's what made the movie. And yeah, like I definitely was not like scared, like so scared that I like had to put my hands in front of my eyes or had trouble sleeping that night or anything. Um, but you know, I keep going back to this like visceral experience thing. Like I felt it and I saw these performances, like the look of terror on their faces, and then these quick cuts of visions of hell. Man, it worked, man. It really worked. And it's something different, you know, this is a sci-fi horror movie, which is a little different. There aren't a lot of these, but the ones that are out there, like say Alien, that's very different movie. I kind of went in expecting something like Alien, you know, sci-fi horror, ensemble cast. There's like a crew on a spaceship and they're going out into some unknown territory and something scary happens. So I thought it was going to be like kind of an Alien vibe. Very different movie from Ridley Scott's Alien. Um, but yeah, pretty enjoyable. I dug this one.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. Like, because yeah, you're right. There's a lot of quick flashes, and you're never so sure kind of what this hellish dimension is and like what it does. I think like one of my favorite scenes in there in the movie, probably like I guess I think one of the most iconic scenes is that the crew finally find Lawrence Fishburne's crew finally finds a video of what happened to the old crew aboard the Event
Oh yeah.
Horizon. And it's like you said, it's full of very quick, very gory shots, complete with them moaning in pain. And it goes on for like 30 seconds until Lawrence Fishburne just turns off the video and just says, "We're leaving." Like there's something, it's almost comedic based on like the timing of the line and what he just saw, but it's also like the realest movie or like the realest moment in it where it's like, yep, that's exactly how I'm feeling. Get the fuck off the ship. And even later, he just says, "Fuck this ship," and
Mhm.
he delivers it so well. Um, because he's a great, he's a great actor. I really enjoyed watching him as the captain and how it really is. And I think what makes Event Horizon like a little more tense, and like very claustrophobic to add to it is that it is in space. It takes place, by Neptune, and with like most haunted house movies, because you're talking about it's like a haunted house in space,
Yeah.
you could theoretically leave the house. They try to make a reason that you can't leave the house, but you think about it, like in The Shining, even though there's the snowstorm outside, they can't just go outside. But, because they're in space, they are stuck. You cannot go anywhere. And I think that gives like I said, like a very claustrophobic feel and a
Yeah.
feeling that like a very dreaded feel that you are just there. And like, yeah, a lot of the things also, like you mentioned, just happen like very quickly, and it's a lot of hallucinations. You always get visions of what hell could be, and you have a lot of people going crazy. There's also a really great scene where like someone gets a vision of hell, and they try to throw themselves out of the airlock because of what they've seen.
Mm, yeah.
And this happens like kind of early on in the movie, and you're like, "What did you see, dude?" Like, you're like, they're being faced with their worst fears, and he's like, "No, don't do it. Don't do this." You're like, after you've seen what I've seen, this, this is mercy or something along those lines. And
Yeah.
he's like almost possessed, you know. And I think like Sam Neill also gives out a very creepy performance as he
Yes.
is like this Jack Torrance like character, Jack Nicholson's character in The Shining, who just you see him just succumbing to this like madness,
Yeah.
you know. And I think
Yeah. I was gonna bring up Sam Neill also, because yeah, I mentioned how the whole cast is great, but Sam Neill is really interesting in this movie because, like you're saying, he's kind of most well known for Jurassic Park, right? Where he's, you know, a good guy. He's a good person, and it really starts with the setup of Sam Neill as like, oh, the good scientist, right? He's actually a little awkward, you know. Um, but then he just like transforms. So he basically becomes possessed by this haunted spaceship, and ultimately becomes like the villain of the movie, and he's pretty freaking terrifying, right? So that was unexpected, right? Especially this movie, I really didn't know much of anything about going in. I did not see uh, this character arc happening. um, and on one more note on Sam Neill, pretty cool. He has a great line at the very end of the movie, where I think this is pretty iconic among the uh the the cult classic circuit here, but he says, do you see, do you see? And then,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's like basically the moment he's like he's destroyed. But yeah, you get the full on like visions of hell and everything. It's pretty epic.
Mhm.
It kind of highlights his great performance. One thing I would note though, um they felt the need to like disfigure him, so they put him in this weird like monster makeup at the end, and it looked kind of corny. I have to admit. Like,
Mhm.
um I think they probably didn't need to do that, like, because I was like I've been saying, the actors really sell their performances in this movie. When they act scared, you believe it. And Sam Neill's a great actor. He was selling his performance. So if he's acting completely unpredictable and just disturbed and like vengeful, whatever, like you're buying it. And they didn't need to like disfigure him and make him look like this crazy monster, right? But yeah, for some reason they decided they wanted to do that. And it did look kind of corny at the end. um yeah, like some of the visual effects and the makeups in this movie feel a little dated, I guess. And I just keep going back to this, like if they just stuck with the actors' performances and then those quick cuts, that's what really worked, and that felt real. Like this year, 2022, 25 years later, like that shit was really scary. It was really like impactful.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think like a lot of what makes this movie work is in the first like two-thirds. I think it's like a lot of build up, the atmosphere, the visions, and like you can definitely tell the movie does fall apart a little bit towards the end. I think once it starts like throwing in more explosions and like um
Yeah.
everything starts feeling a little rushed. Um, and like there's definitely a couple times where like I feel like I heard some like weird sound effects. There's a scene where, there's a fist fight happening and you hear like the most stock sound effects for the punches, or like Lawrence Fishburne hits Sam Neill with an air canister and it makes like kind of a goofy sound. And like
Mm.
there's like little bits in that, as long as like kind of, yeah, like kind of some of the cornier makeup, you know. Um because he had, I thought, like a pretty chilling part like in the middle where it's not when he's all cut up and he kind of looks a lot, it's more of a Hellraiser look. It's in the middle, it's in the kind of in the middle where he pulls his own eyes out.
Oh yeah.
And like, because like I think the line that he says that really got me is well, where we're going, we don't need eyes. And that line was like so chilling. I like got goosebumps and like, oh man, just that for some reason that line and his like super monotone delivery of it was like just, I don't know, something about it just was so terrifying, because it's
Mhm.
like one of those things like you were saying, like it's a real quick, it makes you fill in the blanks of hell. You get a
Yeah.
little quick idea of what it could be, and that idea is so terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is what you don't see in this
Mhm.
movie. Yeah, he's like, need eyes where we're going. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
What do
And
you
then
mean by that?
right. And then like the guy who basically wants to kill himself in order to stay off the ship, like, well, like what he experienced was that fucking scary that he's willing to die. Like, what the hell did he see? Like, and we never saw what he saw, basically. But we can kind of fill in the blanks in our own mind, and like that's scarier than anything you could possibly see, right? What you could come up in your imagination. All right. So, hey, any questions, Porfirio, as you hear us talking about Event Horizon?
No, I think I just gotta. I don't know. I don't know if I should check it out or not. Like, I want to hear you guys' reviews, like what rating you give it, but I don't know, because like some parts you guys are like, it sounds good, but then you guys are like, it's very cheesy. So they're just, I feel like both of you guys are like kind of in sync of like going back and forth about the movie. And so I'm just like, I just kind of just want to watch it to get my own opinion about it. Because it does sound like, like there is like those uh, like horror elements to this sci-fi film, but what I'm also getting is like it's very cheesy and stuff. So I don't know what to think about it, but I'm just like, let me just watch it. that's that's where I'm
Mhm.
at this point.
Got it.
Like, like I'll say, like a lot of the cheese kind of comes from the fact that a little behind the scenes of this movie. So the original cut that was like over 2 hours long,
Mhm,
and Paul W. Anderson shows it to test screening audiences, all that, the studio, and the movie's way too gory and way too much for audiences. People hated it because they found it just too much for them, and the studio told him to like tone it down, like by a lot. Like and like of course, as you mentioned, this movie's like 90, a little over 90 minutes, so a lot ended up being cut from it, and in a very short period of time. Like they only re-edited it in weeks before it premiered, and they had to do a lot of quick things, which probably comes from more. And so like there's parts of it that feel rushed or might feel a little dated, and it might come more from that, just from them trying to having to trim too much of what made the film scary. And I think it's what you don't see as part of it, because you're watching this and we're talking about how scary this is, how like there's a lot of what you don't see that's scary, and
mhm.
it also brings a bit of mystery to the movie. What more is in this movie that scared audiences so much that they couldn't put it in?
Yeah,
What
that's
do
an interesting point.
what do you think it was, Christian?
Um, I think probably more of the hell type stuff in the movie. A lot more
Mm.
blood, a lot more gore, like, and a lot more scares.
So you think
Mhm.
you'd want to watch like the OG run?
Yeah, well, you can't. So apparently, as also legend goes, is that the original cuts of this movie was stored in a salt mine in Transylvania. Um, this is actually what it said, and apparently, because the salt uh, absorbs water, but apparently it just deteriorated over time. So this film doesn't exist anymore. So all we really have is the theatrical cut. There is no secret director's cut of this out there.
We'll never know.
Never know what was too much.
Yeah. I'm almost thinking that it's maybe a good thing, because I'm thinking if we saw more of the visions of hell, that it wouldn't be as scary. We wouldn't be filling in the blanks on our own so much. We'd actually we would explicitly be seeing, what was going on. And as disturbing as that might be, I don't think it would be as scary as, our own imaginations, right? So I think ultimately it's probably a better movie, what we ultimately got here.
Hmm.
A couple notes. You mentioned how like it kind of came apart at the end, Christian. I do agree. it's kind of like what we've been saying about all these Marvel movies, right? How a lot of the third act in Marvel movies, and to a certain degree the TV shows as well, where it just kind of falls apart into a big spectacle. Yeah, it's almost like the same thing. It's like, okay, let's just throw in a bunch of huge explosions, and let's put Sam Neill in this creepy like monster makeup, and it just, yeah, it kind of came off kind of flat. And I would add to that, the very end ends very suddenly. Like the movie just ends. Basically they get off of the ship and movie over. Like credits roll. And there was just, I don't know, there's a missing scene there, or they cut it short, or I don't know, it just ended very suddenly. So yeah, it just goes along with what you're saying, that the end of the movie was a little bit rough. Ultimately, I did enjoy the movie, but they probably could have ended it a little better. All right, so I think we can go to our ratings. So you, as the recommender, Christian, you can start.
Ooh, yeah. So, yeah, I really did enjoy this one. I think the movie got me quite a lot. Like quite a bit as far as the scares go. There's the unseen terror, and I really just like a lot of the hard sci-fi ideas behind this. The way they had the wormholes, and you see the wormhole technology, and as well as that, like, I don't know, I'm kind of a sucker for that old school sci-fi look. I think you really get that in this movie with the Lewis and Clark ship that they're on has this very mechanical cyberpunky look, while the Event Horizon is very, very horror-esque, and something about like the two together out in deep space just really did it for me. This movie did do it for me on a lot of different levels. To the point where I think I can really look past a lot of its shortcomings that come up. So I'll give this movie a 4.
Excellent,
I
excellent.
recommend.
Right on. Like I've been saying, I did enjoy this one as well. Maybe not as much. I'm going to go with a 3, still a recommendation. But yeah, I think the sort of lackluster final act took it down a little bit for me. I do agree about the look and feel. This movie was made in 97, and it was kind of an interesting period because it felt like a transitional kind of movie. Like it had like some CGI, but it was mostly practical effects. Um, so it had like prosthetic makeup. It also had like some matte paintings, but also, like I said, it had like some CGI too. So um, it was just kind of like this transitional period for visual effects, and um, it had a look and feel that you just really don't see anymore. So some of it felt dated, some of it felt very cool, but ultimately it felt like I was watching a late 90s sci-fi movie, and there's nothing wrong with that. It was fun. So yeah, I'll give it a 3. And what else can I say? Yeah, it was fun. This is a fun movie. I think like you guys were talking about with Leprechaun, this too would be, I think, a pretty good Halloween party movie. Yeah, put it on at a Halloween party type thing. I guarantee you, people would be like, "Oh shit, Event Horizon, fuck yeah, dude!" That type of reaction. It's like, "Oh, wait for this one scene. Yeah, oh, check this out." That sort of deal. So a fun movie, and I'm glad that I finally was able to check it out. Okay, with that. Oh, do you have something else, Porfirio?
I just want to point out that the people who like got the homework like assigned a lower rating than the person who recommended the film.
Across the board. Yeah.
Yeah, funny how that happened.
Yeah.
Even when it was a movie that I haven't seen before,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe
Uh-huh.
there's something to that. Maybe there's like this feeling of this is my movie and I'm sticking with it. You know, this is my pick.
I
It's
think that
good.
I think that's what happened last time also, wasn't it? Like
Oh
with
yeah.
The Shining and Insidious.
Yep.
That
That's the exact same thing happened.
uh-huh.
The recommender gave much higher ratings. So, but from the vibe I'm getting though is that everyone is being like 100% honest with their take, which is that's what we want, right? We want full honesty.
Uh-huh. Till next year when we do our next Halloween picks.
This might be a fun little Halloween tradition, so
Uh-huh.
keep your picks in mind for next time.
And then we'll give Christian a jump scare pick. No, I'm just
oh
kidding.
boy. Oh
Okay.
no.
With that, we can wrap up the episode. This is farewell from Christian, Henry, and Porfirio.